it's been a little while since I streamed. I was actually going to stream last weekend, but I had a really bad toothache and an infection. It was no bueno and I couldn't talk. So even though I was stuck home all weekend, I couldn't really stream because I would have sounded really horrible. So, unfortunately, Geo doesn't have any WoW time right now, and it wasn't worth it to us to just spend the $15 so he can run a raid or two with me. So for the purposes of getting Gruul's Lair done in Blade's Edge Mountains, I just logged on to my max level character, Nestadrin, in order to run through this for the story. So, we are here outside Gruul's Lair, and I will be heading in there momentarily. But I did just kind of want to run through a little bit of history. We basically did this whole region without really talking about the Gruul, even though they play quite a big role in this zone. So I pulled up a little bit of background information on the Gruul from Gamepedia, and I just kind of wanted to go over it. So, the Gruul are a race of immense, brutal giants native to Draenor. They are members of the Breaker faction, descendants of the Magnaron and the ancient Colossals, and are themselves the ancestors of the Ogron, ogres, and orcs, the former of which worshipped their massive progenitors as gods. However, the Gruul show little love for their ogre offspring, ruling over the ogre clans of Outland with an iron fist. So their early history is, as the stone giant Gruul battled the spore mounds, pieces of the battling leviathans fell to the earth and gave rise to new types of creatures. From Gruul came the Colossals and Elementals, while from the spore mounds many unique beings arose, the Genosaur greatest among them. And we'll actually see the Genosaur in Draenor when we get to that expansion later on. After Gruul's death at the hands of the spore mound Baton, the Colossals continued their war against the Evergrowth and Baton's minions for thousands of years. But over the millennia, these battles took their toll on the stone giants. Just as the Colossals had risen from pieces of Gruul, new creatures called the Magnaron emerged from the remains of fallen Colossals. After the Colossals sacrificed themselves to kill Baton, in a massive explosion, spores from the plant's creature's body, teeming with the spirit of life, drifted back to Draenor's surface and clung to the hides of the Magnaron, weakening their bodies. Some of the Magnaron devolved into half-flesh, half-stone giants known as Gruul. Due to the lingering effect of the spores, a small number of Gruul continued to degenerate into the Ogron, and in turn the ogres, and finally the orcs. The Magnaron, Gruul, and Ogron were known collectively as the Breakers, and though different in many ways, their common ancestry united them against the plant-like primals, the descendants of the spore mounds. For many long ages, the two factions engaged in sporadic battles with one another, neither side ever managing to destroy the other. It's kind of funny because this is obviously kind of like a history lesson, but the Draenor expansion of World of Warcraft is the second to last expansion that is in the game thus far. So it's later on, but you're essentially going back in time to like a parallel universe. So while all of this stuff is historical, it's actually going to happen later in the game. So because of that, I'm not going to continue on with much of the historical stuff because we'll encounter that more so in Draenor. I'll probably come back to a lot of this once we're in that region. But I can read the Burning Crusade section. So, particularly about Gruul. So, thousands of years later, the Orcish horde marched across Draenor. War Chief Blackhand tasked Orcish Frostwolf, Thunderlord, and Whiteclaw clans with wiping out Draenor's Gron, Ogron, and Magneron, as well as the ogres that had refused to join the horde. One of the few Gron to escape the onslaught was named Gruul, who far surpassed the rest of his kind in brute strength and cunning. He lorded over a small number of ogres and Gron in Gorgrond, in Draenor, and from his remote lair in the mountains, he fended off multiple Thunderlord assaults. Casualties grew so great that Fenris eventually abandoned the attacks. Years later, the black dragon aspect, Deathwing, and his minions swooped down on Gorgrond in search of a safe place to store his aches. However, Gorgrond was still home to Gruul and the Gron who had survived Draenor's slow decay. The giants were highly territorial, but the calamities that had befallen Draenor caused them to join forces in order to survive. Gruul and his followers had no intention of allowing intruders to conquer their home and ferociously fought back against the dragons. The Sons of Lothar arrived in Gorgrond in search of the skull of Gul'dan. The Alliance forces were deeply unsettled by the battles between the Gron and the dragons, for Gruul and his minions had taken to impaling their enemies' corpses on spikes. The Gron nearly attacked the Sons of Lothar, but Khadgar and Turalyon convinced them that the Alliance was also the enemy of the Black Dragon Flight and managed to strike a bargain with Gruul. He would give them safe passage through Gorgrond, and they would help him defeat Deathwing. Today, Gruul the Dragon Killer is worshipped as a deity by ogres of Blade's Edge Mountains. The twisted remnants of Gorgrond and Draenor was shattered into Outland. His powerful sons ravage both the spires of their home and the plains of Nagrand. Gruul's unparalleled strength and experience in battle would pose a serious threat if he ever chose to attack Horde or Alliance forces in Outland. Some Gron have since been brought to Azeroth. Skullcrusher the Mountain, the Chosen of Cho'Gall, serves the Twilight Hammer in Twilight Highlands, while enslaved Gron brutes serve Twilight forces in Grim Batal. At some point, the then War Chief of the Horde, Garrosh Hellscream, captured a Nagrand Gron named Ogax and brought him to Brawlgar Arena in order to test the fighting prowess of the recently arrived G Firepaw and adventure of Hojin Pandaren, which is stuff that'll happen. So, that's a little bit about the Gron and Gruul before we head into his lair. He's been around for quite some time, and we're gonna go kick his butt. That was High King Mulgar. Not a very impressive specimen. I'm surprised there's a boss so early. Well, I guess there's only 2 bosses about it. And there's our friend Gruul the Dragon Killer.
Come and die.
Alright, my friends. Well, that's literally it. So I believe we are good to head over to Netherstorm next. There's 8 million quests for that area. So I'm actually going to head back to Stormwind. Is all of this soulbound? Okay, so I can't give any of it away anyways. So I am just going to head back to my little area, and then I will see you guys in a few minutes on Svetlana to head over to Netherstorm.